On the river where they used to build the boats.
Yeah, sorry, skip intro for that. I'm not listening to that ever again.
The BOX2BOX podcast on Radio YNP.
We're talking about Sunderland Till I Die this week. Have you watched it?
I have indeed.
We have.
What did you think? Just all around consensus.
Really enjoyed it. It was nice to see kind of the opposite of the Man City documentary. The Man City documentary is effectively them being like, well done lads, we are class. We spent a lot of money and we won the Premier League, and that's absolutely fair. But it is just very much them patting themselves on the back. Yeah. Whereas this one, there's stakes involved, and I love that.
Yeah, it felt as if like a Sunderland fan wanted to was jealous of Newcastle getting Goal the movie. and says, I'm going to make my own version of that, and then it just backfired on them.
But only it's going to be about us being really can't say that.
Go on, hit it again.
But only it's about us being really bad.
Matty might have said a word that begins with S and ends with hit.
Matty had to do take two. Right, I do have a question for you, lads.
I have an answer.
Do you care?
Yes.
Don't you tell me that I don't care. There's players in that team who don't care.
Mate, there's too many people at the club that don't give a
Darren, I care, Darren.
Darren Gibson.
Darren,
my God.
We all care, we're all concerned.
I'd care if it was on 35k a week, though, I'll tell you that.
I wanted to take out the Alcoholics Anonymous after watching that. I think it was he crashed his car while drunk.
Yeah.
He had that rant in the bar, which I can remember watching actually on Twitter when it happened, being like, my God, this man played for Man United a few years ago. And
what a fall from grace.
Sunderland. Could you imagine Sir Alex Ferguson seeing that?
I know.
And hit one of his players.
He'd be sitting rubbing his hair ferociously.
Getting a pizza to the face.
That man sacked Roy Keane
Yep.
for being a bit too honest. And he was sober. And this was Darren Gibson just giving off about all of the players in the pub.
I think Gibson. I think you could tell a wee bit that his heart was in it. He was there for good reasons.
But he also had that I'm a daft alcoholic vibe to him. So it was
he reminded me a lot of my own dad. So it was really weird.
It was like you turned up at the pub and this guy was telling you, back in my day I used to play football, but he was still playing football for Sunderland.
He was like, well, say it again. He's from the north of Ireland. He's a footballer, player for Manchester United. Mm-hmm. He's George Best a second. Don't we all love it? Why don't we get him in airport?
I was going to say,
Darren Gibson, Belfast City Airport.
I just thought he was so cringy. There was a lot of cringy characters.
Yeah.
Throughout the whole season.
Who?
The CEO.
He was bad,
your fella Bain.
Yeah.
Martin Bain, isn't it?
I think it's. We were talking about this before. I think it is Martin, but I'm not gonna. I don't know what the first name is.
Yeah, he really wanted to paint himself in the positive picture as if he was there to save the club and he was the messiah and he was there trying to do all the right things. And
he's very corporate, Martin Bain.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you had him. You had God. There was a few.
God was there as well.
No.
Well, he certainly wasn't on Sunderland's side.
No, you had Jack Rodwell.
He was just there for a laugh. That's what I was saying.
He was there to get paid.
It's a disgrace, though, isn't it? Really, I can understand him being I'm not going to accept terminate my contract. But I think before that, clearly he's had loads of opportunity to leave the club or to play for the club. And I think it's a shame that he clearly was a very talented player at one point, but now that's what he's going to be remembered for.
No, to think City signed him. I don't know how much it was for. 15, 16 million.
Meant a lot of
money.
Meant a lot of Julian Lescott.
Yeah.
His magical forehead.
Yeah.
Where he had went to City from Everton, actually the exact same path. They ended up at Aston Villa. Got money a bit too early in their careers.
But he Lescott, you could see a bit of a player in him, but Rodwell could have really been a world-class player, I think, whenever he went to City. There was a lot of potential in him there.
The injuries done him, though. But I don't see why Sunderland ever had him on that kind of money.
No. What happened with that was they usually, when it comes to that, I know this from Football Manager, by the way, they have there's clauses in contracts where if you get relegated, your wages go down, and Jack Rodwell never had that in his contract.
Yeah, he was the only player that didn't.
So whenever they get relegated, all the players your boy Darren Gibson, John O'Shea, and so on, all kind of got their wages cut. But for some reason, Jack Rodwell, they were so convinced they were staying up that they let Jack Rodwell keep 50 grand a week.
Ultimately, it's not his fault, really, is it? It
is a bet he wouldn't play.
Yeah, but that was the bad thing about it. It's his choice at the end of the day. If someone came up to him and says, "Here, you're really selfish for taking that," he can fully just say, "Well, no, I'm not gonna just take less money."
I know, I'd be great himself, but I'll still take 70 grand a week,
Yeah, but at least put a bit of heart in the club, try and get yourself back out on the pitch, try and understand the situation. I think all the most of the players had a fair understanding of what the club meant to the fans and what their circumstances they were in,
Yeah.
and how badly the club was being managed.
But you could see a small minority was there for the club, and you could see like there was quite a lot was kind of just there for, I don't know what they were there for at that
I mean,
stage.
Darren Gibson said it himself. A lot of the players didn't care.
Yeah.
One thing that I did really like about the documentary was the insights into the transfer deadline day.
Yeah, that
And that was like
definitely-
really, really interesting to me because you got to see like the ins and outs of how transfers are done. I think there was one where they got rejected from a player that they were chasing.
in the
The
last couple of hours.
Yeah, the entire
But
the entire day.
you could see that a made off like a bad like pickup line at a club.
Yeah.
You know, you could tell when your fella Payne was on the phone with that guy's agent, and he was saying, just give him the weekend to think about it, and it was.
No, he doesn't want to come up there, Martin. No, he just wants to think about
He
it.
basically got friend zoned there. Is what happened.
They were that guy, 3 a.m. in the bar, just looking about, being like, right, who's available? Who's still here? Who hasn't gone home?
Like
yet?
it was such a shame that they lost Graven because it was clear that he was the only one
Yeah,
capable
but
of scoring
he didn't
goals.
want to be there as well.
I know,
He was
clearly, though.
probably the worst of them all.
But you know what? And then when he came back and scored and then celebrated,
I know.
oh,
I know.
That-
It hurt
that
for me,
annoyed-
not
yeah,
a
that annoyed
Sunderland
me. That
fan, so I
annoyed me.
can't believe what it done to them.
Do you know what really set up the documentary for me? It was in the first episode, and it was pre-season. And the first episode, by the way, all the background stuff are lovely, and I loved them.
Yeah.
But all the fans, they were so positive and so
The
optimistic
Celtic game.
about the season. And they were going into the Celtic game, and they were going, what are the scores going to be? Oh, it'll be 5-0. Little did they know it would be 5-0,
yeah, I had a
but not to
friend.
Sunderland.
I had a friend who actually attended that match, and I remember the day because he was actually buzzing for the game. It was like, yeah, we're going to do them today. We're gonna have a great game. And I remember after the game, and he was just so gutted. And I think that just set the tone for the season, didn't it?
Yeah, pre-season quite often sets up the season, and like Manchester United this season, if you look terrible in pre-season, you're probably gonna be terrible when you get to the dance. And it was no different for Sunderland. I think they actually got worse whenever they got into it.
I don't know. Like preseason can go one of two ways. Like really, because I always remember like Madati in preseason. Madati follows Celtic, and he always used to say to me like, if I was looking at some of the results, I used to go, "Oh, Daddy, he didn't do too well yesterday. Got beat by some American team, or he's got beat by a League One team or whatever." And he'd go, but that's always the thing. See, if we do well in pre-season, we do terrible throughout the the regular season, and if we do good, or if we do bad in pre-season, then we'll always start the season off really well. Like, that's always, he had that one wee superstition every season. But yeah, it just, but sometimes it can have just especially with such a bad result, 5-0 at home, it must have just knocked them for 6.
Yeah, it really did.
There was there was kind of a beacon of positivity in it, although it was very dark and very depressing. Johnny Williams, the story of Johnny Williams, I thought was really like heartwarming.
Yeah.
Like seeing his journey to coming back to playing and on full fitness, I thought was really interesting. Like the therapy and stuff. And he was very open about it
So
all.
he's very open, yeah.
And I think that was very important because we've seen in recent years players like Aaron Lennon go through mental health issues. I think Danny Rose. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
he
I think it was
mentioned
Danny
that,
Rose. He going through the same. I think a lot of footballers go through that, and it's just not talked about enough. But Johnny Williams being so open about it, I thought may have helped.
Fair play,
Yeah, it was good to see him in the counselling session. Don't know if you remember that
Yeah.
episode where he actually sat in the counselling session and the cameras were there, and he was talking with his counsellor. I think that was really great to see and showed like a real life problem that was there in front of him. It's good
because like we don't usually see footballers as human beings. We're, a couple of months ago we were like slandering Jack Rodwell for earning the wage
And Darren
packet,
Gibson there as well.
and Darren Gibson
Who
and
probably is actually suffering from
alcoholism.
alcoholism, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, but like
Not to take that too lightly.
yeah, but I think he was just we can't make these things if they are immature with some of these issues like Darren Gibson was, but to see someone be so humble about an issue that he has, it was really refreshing, and it made it feel more human, made it more relatable.
And I think as well, he's a good protagonist for the documentary, because there's nothing like his performances on the pitch. He doesn't leave anything on it or off it. Sorry, you know what I mean. He really goes for it, and I think it's really enlightening to see the kind of role of psychology within sports. Which I don't know about you, but certainly around Arsenal, like you hear a lot about the psychologists that they brought in to kind of help the team and the role that they have to play in coaching. And I think that's interesting. You know, you're looking maybe in the last 10 years that managers would have kind of taken on that brunt and had to be there to kind of motivate the players and to work through any issues with the players. But now it's actually a question of bringing some specialists in to help people with that. And I think it's interesting just to see that and just to get a small glimpse into even Sunderland, who are now a League One club, and how much they've kind of used it for their players.
It was like the whole club against the owners. And that was the big thing. Like, they were complaining about the owners constantly, and I think the owner had give quite a lot to the club over the last 10 to 15 years he was there. But coming towards the end, he just didn't want to put any more money into it, I think, because the way the club was going. It's good to see.
I think he kind of saw where it was like.
He saw where it was heading. I think
he saw what was happening, and he was like, "It's like Titanic. I need off this.
Yeah, I think he
leave."
tried. He tried to get out of there a lot sooner than he did as well. You know, the new owner that's came in, Stuart Donald, and I follow him on Twitter. He seems to be quite open, and the fans seem to love him for that. You know, he posts on Twitter his thoughts, and the club's doing really well in League One. I mean, they sold, I think, something like 45,000 tickets for a game recently as well, and the whole manager stuff with him. You know, he was a guy that came in late in the late in the first season of that Sunderland Till I Die, and showed his promise, and now I think he's going to leave. I think he wants to stay at the club, but the agents telling him to leave. But the owners came out and outed him on Twitter about that and been open about what's happening and what the case is. And I think the fans are enjoying that.
Yeah.
They have a different type of owner now.
It's
More vocal.
Yeah, it's just I think that's what the Sunderland fan base needs, and I think that was one of the intentions. Stuart Donald says when he first came in is that, you know, while his first experience was with Eastleigh, and while that was only like a couple of thousand people, he managed to galvanise a whole, you know, club of supporters to let them be completely transparent with them and know exactly what's going on with the club, and so that there's not this blurred line of where the owner's intentions lie. So as they know that what they're doing is in the best interest of the club. I actually think, in regards to Alice Shaw, I don't actually think that
Alice Short.
Short, sorry. Like, I don't actually think too much was made of actually the investment that he had already put into the club. I think it was showing you a lot of, you know, the fans, you know, abusing him for not putting more money into the club. But as you said, I think he knew what was coming, so it was hopeless to actually, and he knew that he was trying to sell the club.
This is off the back of, like, you know, years of Sunderland fans. Like, we can't forget, Sunderland were in the Premier League for a long time, and the entire time they were in the Premier League, they were just relegation fodder. They were in there for a relegation fight, and they had players like Asamoah Gyan that they saw leave and wasn't really replaced very well. Darren Bent was the same. You know, it was years of Alice Short kind of half-heartedly.
But he did put the money in there. I mean, they bought Rodwell. I remember they were buying people like Wabi Kazri and even keeping the likes of Stefan Sessegnon for a couple of seasons. Yeah. And like they were definitely investing in the squad. I just think it's more a case of the management within the team and within the squad, and how those funds were used was probably quite poorly. And it seems to be, especially if we look at, again, back to the case of Jack Rodwell and the kind of contract that he had, that they were like short-term investments and short-term fixes for what was a ship that was leaking.
Yeah, it was like a gamble almost, and they took a gamble for a few seasons, and eventually that gamble isn't going to pay off. And then the season that didn't pay off, the owner seemed to just lost their head.
And how many managers did they go through? How many times did they have to pay someone out of their contract?